Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Legend, and I am back with another video. You already know what this is, just by looking at the thumbnail. What if Naruto sealed himself for 7,000 years to save everyone? This is everybody's favorite what if of mine. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's an Avatar what if. Maybe it's because the ship is Azula. Who knows? I don't know. But you guys already know that I'm out the hospital since I'm making this video. But without further ado, let's just get into this intro so we can start this what if. The clatter of armored boots echoed down the stone streets of Ba Sing Se as Fire Lord Zuko led the march. Cloaked in the dark red and gold of his royal armor, his every step struck like a hammer against the hushed air of the early morning. The city was awake but silent in his presence. Shopkeepers froze mid-gesture. Children peeked from behind door frames, and murmurs followed him like a trailing shadow. Behind him, a squad of 10 Fire Nation soldiers kept their formation tight, each one armored and armed. Though the sharpness of their movements betrayed the unease building within them. This was no parade. This was a hunt. Zuko's jaw was set, his amber eyes locked forward with a determination that smoldered hotter than the crown he bore. He told himself this was necessary, that Azula needed to be found and taken back under control before she spiraled again. But beneath that justification lay something else. Guilt. Every clang of armor behind him was a reminder of his failure as both Fire Lord and as a brother. He had let her slip through his grasp once before. He would not let it happen again. The march carried them through the outer districts of the city until the stone gave way to dirt roads, and the clustered buildings faded into forest shadows. The soldiers shifted uneasily now that they were outside the eyes of civilians. Whispers passed between them like nervous sparks. Stories of the princess's madness, the sharp edge of her flames, the wrath that could melt through steel. None of them said it aloud, but they all shared the same thought. If Azula was truly here, if she was waiting, they would be facing a storm. But Azula wasn't the only name on their minds. There was another, Naruto. The foreigner, the man who had supposedly freed Azula from her imprisonment, who fought with powers unlike anything they'd seen. They knew almost nothing about him except whispers from Ty Lee and a handful of spies. A young man who could mold wood and stone, who had the strength of a monster, yet the demeanor of a wanderer. He had no history in their world, no allegiances, no stake in its politics, and yet he was protecting Azula fiercely. That alone made him dangerous. At the edge of the forest, Zuko finally raised a hand. The squad halted, their boots grinding into the dirt. The silence that followed was thick enough to suffocate. For a long while, nothing moved. The forest loomed ahead, its canopy dense, the air cool and damp. The soldiers shifted in pace, hands hovering near their weapons, minds gnawed by doubt. Zuko's eyes scanned the tree line, burning with intent. 3 of you, he ordered finally, his voice firm and measured. Step forward and come with me. There was hesitation, but 3 soldiers obeyed. The others stayed behind, relieved, though guilt pricked them from feeling so. Zuko did not notice, or he chose not to. His gaze was fixed ahead as he led his smaller unit into the woods. Branches snapped beneath their boots. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to thicken, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and sap. Then suddenly, the trees parted, and they stepped into a clearing unlike anything they had expected. All 4 of them froze. Before them stood a massive structure, woven into the very bones of the forest itself. A sprawling treehouse mansion rose high into the branches, its wooden beams and platforms seamlessly fused with living trees, as if the forest had willingly bent itself to the will of its maker. Rope bridges connected its upper levels, wide porches stretched outward, one with a bench and chairs set neatly near the door. On the ground below lay a training yard, its sand marked by the scuffs of sparring and practice. Zuko's breath caught in his throat. His soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, awe tugging at their disciplined facades. "This is where she stays?" one of them whispered. Zuko's hands curled into fists at his sides. "And Ty said this Naruto built it?" The words tasted bitter in his mouth. A foreigner, an outsider, had given his sister sanctuary, a home more magnificent than anything Zuko had expected. It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a fortress, a sanctuary, a promise. His teeth clenched as he marched to the door, lifted his fist and pounded hard against the wood. "Azula!" His voice thundered through the clearing. "I know you're in there. Open the door. It's me. I just want to see you. To talk. You're my sister." The only reply was silence. He struck again, harder this time, the wood rattling beneath his armored fist. "Azula!" His voice cracked, not with weakness, but with a raw edge that carried the weight of memory and longing. Still, there was nothing. The unease in his soldiers deepened. The silence was worse than confrontation. Silence meant they were being ignored, or worse, watched. Frustration clawed at Zuko's chest until it boiled over. With a growl, he drew back his leg and kicked. The door splintered inward, swinging wide as he and his 3 soldiers stormed inside. The interior was no less impressive. Spacious rooms stretched in every direction, wooden beams carved with deliberate care, and furniture arranged with a strange balance of comfort and practicality. But the emptiness was suffocating. There was no Azula, no Naruto, not even a hint of June. "Search it," Zuko commanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Every room, every floor. If you find Azula, restrain her. If you find him..." He hesitated, his voice faltering for a half a second, then it hardened. "Arrest him. If he resists, kill him." The soldiers obeyed, scattering like shadows through the mansion. Footsteps echoed across empty halls. Doors creaked open and slammed shut. Dust motes swirled where no one had walked in days. By the time they returned, their faces told Zuko everything. Nothing. The only trace of life they found was a folded letter resting neatly on a table. Zuko recognized it instantly. It was his own. The letter he'd written to Azula days ago, asking her to meet him. She'd kept it, or perhaps she had left it. A message of her own rejection. Zuko stood in the doorway, staring out at the clearing with narrowed eyes. His breath came heavy, his chest rising and falling with restrained fury. She was gone. She had left him again, and this time she had help. Naruto. The name burned hotter in his mind than fire. Far from the forest and the hollowed mansion, high within the mountains, Naruto was hard at work. The mountain air was crisp, carrying the scent of stone and pine. Outside the temple's grand wooden doors, Naruto knelt in the dirt, hands pressed against the ground as chakra pulsed through his palms. Slowly the earth shifted, rising and flattening into a wide, square training ground. Wooden beams sprouted from the soil, arching upward into shade posts, while stone branches and benches took shape along the edge for resting. When he finally pulled his hands free, he exhaled, brushing the sweat from his brow. The ground before him was transformed, a perfect blend of earth and wood, sturdy and natural. Behind him, the temple doors creaked open. Azula and June stepped out, their footsteps soft against the stone. Both women paused when they saw him, their eyes drawn not only to his work, but to him. The quiet strength in his posture, the gentleness in the way he built rather than destroyed. But the air between them was heavy. Azula's golden eyes darted away, her usual poise cracking under the weight of what she wanted to say. June folded her arms, though her smirk was gone, replaced by something uncertain. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The silence was not hostile, but it was thick, charged with something unspoken. Finally, Azula drew in a sharp breath. "Naruto," she began, her voice softer than usual, almost hesitant. I think all three of us need to talk about what we feel for each other." Her cheeks burned faintly, and she turned her gaze aside. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, his lips pulling into an awkward half smile. "Should we talk inside or out here?" June was the first to answer. "Inside," she said quickly, her tone clipped but betraying a nervous edge. Naruto nodded, glancing between them. The three of them walked toward the temple's doors together, none of them speaking, each lost in their own storm of thoughts. The sun dipped lower into the sky, shadows stretching across the temple walls. Inside, words would be spoken, words that could change everything. The three of them entered the temple and sat down at the dining room table, with Naruto sitting at the head. Naruto had his hands folded underneath his chin as he spoke. "So, who's starting first?" They all looked around the table at each other, yet no one spoke. June sighed and spoke. "I guess I'll start then. Naruto, I know you think taking time to think about this situation when you've already thought about it 3 times already isn't affecting anyone, but it really is. You have Azula and me worrying and stressing over what you will say and think like some preteens in the academy." Azula looked away, slightly embarrassed. "She has a point. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it does make me feel slightly insecure." Azula made no eye contact when she said that. June stood and placed her hands on the table as she leaned over it. "Look, Naruto, I don't know what it is that you have to think about, but give us something, please." Naruto looked at both of them and sighed. "Fine. I guess I should start by saying that my entire life All 7,017 years I've been alive, I've never been good with women. June blinked and tilted her head in confusion when he said that, but Azula wasn't so surprised. What do you mean, 7,017 years? It's impossible for a human being to live that long. Naruto looked at June. Patience. That's a story for another time. Now, with that being said, you know part of the reason why I've been silent. Now, I do feel something for you, both of you, but I didn't think it would have been fair if I came and told either of you that. But now you're forcing me to say it by playing on my soft spot for the two of you. The air in the Mountain Temple's dining room was already heavy, but June's sharp words made it nearly suffocating. Naruto had spoken carefully, slowly, explaining that he felt something for both Azula and June. He hadn't wanted to admit it this soon. Not like this, but hiding it any longer felt wrong. He had hoped for understanding, or at the very least patience. Instead, the storm came. June's eyes widened before narrowing, her jaw tightening as though she had just swallowed something bitter. What do you mean you feel something for both of us? You're not supposed to. You have to pick one. Her voice cracked midway, half anger, half heartbreak, and her hands curled into fists at her sides. Naruto sighed, shoulders slumping, as if the weight pressing on him had doubled. He knew this might happen, but it still stung to see her hurt. June, it's not that simple. I can't control how I feel for a person at will. His tone was steady, but inside, he was bracing himself. Every word felt like stepping barefoot onto broken glass. His fists shook now, and knuckles pale with tension. Stop. Just stop. Why can't you just be honest? You're not scared of hurting us. You just want both of us. Well, that's not how this is going to work. You need to pick one of us, and one only. Azula, who had been quietly watching the exchange, finally spoke. June, I think we should just give Naruto more time to think this through. Her words were softer than usual, almost careful, but June snapped back, her voice rising with raw emotion. No, he's already had time to think about it. You said you've been alive for over 7,000 years, right? Well, I refuse to let you drag any of those barbaric, ancient relationship standards back. Not here, not now. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her breath unsteady, and she looked like she was trembling, on the edge of breaking. Naruto remained calm on the outside, but irritation stirred within him. His jaw tightened, and his fingers twitched on the wooden table. Inside his head, the Biju voices soothed him, soft and deliberate. Kurama's low rumble mixed with Monetabi's silken tone. Calm down, Naruto-kun. She doesn't mean what she said. The girl is just emotional right now. Taking a deep breath, Naruto leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment before speaking. Fine. You want me to choose? Okay. His eyes opened again, cold and sharp with finality. I choose neither of you. The room fell silent. June's breath hitched audibly while Azula froze, her golden eyes widening in surprise. Naruto stood slowly, pushing away from the small table. He didn't spare either of them another glance as he walked to his room, footsteps echoing faintly against the old stone floor. The door shut behind him with a muted thud, leaving Azula and June in stunned silence. In his room, Naruto collapsed onto the bed with a long exhale, pressing a hand to his forehead. This was exactly why he had wanted time to sort out his feelings before speaking them aloud. Now, he had only managed to hurt them both. He closed his eyes, but his mind remained restless. A gentle knock sounded against his door, but he ignored it, unwilling to face anyone at the moment. The handle turned anyway. The door opened slowly, revealing Azula. She stepped inside with quiet confidence, though her hands betrayed a hint of unease as they brushed against her robes. Naruto sat up on the edge of the bed, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I didn't say you could come in." Azula shut the door behind her, her steps deliberate as she crossed the room. "I just want to apologize for what June said about you. I think she was completely out of line." Naruto studied her face for a long moment before looking down at the floor. His voice was quieter now, heavy with regret. "Don't. You shouldn't apologize for the actions of others. If anything, I should be apologizing. I overreacted because I wanted the conversation to end. And I've come to realize that I don't have the same patience I did back then. I don't like being disrespected. I don't have the same tolerance." His words trailed off as his gaze fixed onto the floorboards. Azula moved closer, her presence warm against the cold air of the stone chamber. She settled onto the bed beside him, the mattress dipping slightly under her weight. For a moment, she said nothing, only watching his profile. Then, with a breath that trembled ever so slightly, she placed her hand over his. "I would never disrespect you," she whispered, her voice softer than it had ever been. "I don't care what or who or why you are the way you are. I just don't want you to leave me, ever." The words spilled out of her in a rush, and immediately her face flushed, her eyes darting away in embarrassment. She hadn't meant to sound so desperate, but the truth had clawed its way free before she could restrain it. She shifted back slightly, trying to create space between them, suddenly uncomfortable with her own vulnerability. Naruto turned toward her, his gaze piercing. "Is that really how you feel, Azula?" She swallowed hard and gave a small, shy nod, refusing to meet his eyes. His hand lifted slowly, deliberately, until his fingers brushed her chin. Gently, he tilted her face toward him, forcing her to look into his eyes. Then, without another word, he leaned forward and kissed her. Azula's breath caught in her throat. Shock pulsed through her body. This wasn't their first kiss, but it felt like it. Her heart pounded as though it wanted to leap from her chest. For a moment, she was frozen, wide-eyed and unsure. Then instinct took over. Her hand shot up, clutching the front of his shirt, pulling him closer, desperate for more. "Naruto," she whispered into his mouth, her voice husky and trembling. She wrapped her arms around his neck, molding herself against him as though afraid he might vanish. When their lips finally broke apart, she was breathless, her golden eyes shimmering with an intensity Naruto had never seen in her before. "Promise me you won't leave," she murmured, her voice breaking, almost pleading. Naruto searched her eyes, seeing past the fire and pride to the vulnerable core beneath. "Azula, are you sure this is what you want?" Her arms tightened around him, her body pressing closer, as though her very life depended on his answer. Promise me you won't leave me." He hesitated only for a moment before lowering his hands to her hips, pulling her closer until their foreheads touched. His voice was steady, resolute. "I promise I won't leave you for as long as you live." Relief washed over Azula's face, softening the sharpness of her features into something achingly human. She smiled, small but real, before kissing him again. This time there was no hesitation, no restraint. She wrapped her legs around his waist, holding him, as though she had finally found the one anchor she had been searching for her entire life. Outside the door, the temple hallways were silent, the tension from earlier still lingering like smoke after a fire. But in that room, for the first time in years, Azula felt safe. And for the first time in a long while, Naruto let himself feel wanted. But guys, I'm going to end it off right there. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe while you're at it. The like goal for this video was going to be 7 likes. If we could get more, that would be very nice. But I am out for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay blessed, fam.